28 years. 23rd year of teaching at Grisham, but I subbed at Grisham for 3 years.
It says here that I have been 25 years in Round Rock, so it's coming up, I don't know, 24 years.
This is my 25th year at Grisham. 25 years.
This is the only place I've ever taught. I was a mother in my previous life. I was director of a preschool, and I was PTA president, including at Grisham. I was PTA president the first year. I was also teaching here, so as I worked as a para here. First, I did in-school suspension for 3 years because there were no special ed teaching jobs available here. We were living near here, and my kids were going through Grisham at that time, so I wanted to stay in the area.
So this would be my 26th year of teaching. And so I did 2 years. I did a year and a half at Canyon Vista. So after this year, so it's like 24, 23 years here. It's been a while.
I taught at Springwoods High School in Houston for 4 years. I went to work on my master's, and then I started a children's theater program, carousel theater program with ACT Theater, and I also worked with Kenley School for Kids with Learning Disabilities for 3-year-olds through 12th graders. And I did that for 5 years, got married, came to Austin, was promised a job at Johnston Middle School, and HR said I had too much experience, so I didn't get the job even though the principal wanted me there. So last minute, I got a job teaching special ed resource 9 preps at Round Rock High School. After the first year, a theater opening came up at that school, and Doc Russell didn't want me to be considered because he liked what I was doing with special ed. So I did that another year, and then the opening came for Grisham.
¿Y cuál es la mejor parte de su trabajo aquí?
Limpieza.
Limpieza.
Ayudar a los estudiantes cuando necesitan ayuda, especialmente los lockers que se les traban cada.
Happy to work here. I like work with kids, with teachers, and learn a lot about kids.
Wow. I decided really back in high school that I wanted to work with kids, and I worked part-time at times for part-time jobs in daycares even before I went to college and all, and then always wanted to work.
Well, my mom was a teacher, and at the time I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I really did like the idea of having so much time in the summer. Goodness gracious, all the holidays. And at the time, before I kind of knew what I was getting into, I just thought, well, people had told me that, you know, when you go into education, you could always go ahead and commit to something else. And it's a good, well-rounded, you know, college education. And so then I just kind of kept going with it and kind of grown into it over 25 years.
I love to act. If I could do something with Shakespeare all the time, I would do it. That's my favorite. I've done some things with Austin Shakespeare Company and some other groups, but that's my favorite. But anything, acting, directing, design, you name it, that's all I've wanted to do since I was 3.
I like the people I work with here at Grisham. I also enjoy the students. I enjoy the special ed world because it's quite a variety of different types. Every year is very different for me, so there's really not a boring day. Maybe 5 principals have come through, and then even the building changes. I've watched us go from rooms that had all accordion folding walls in between them because Open Concept was here when I first started subbing here. The library was out in the hall where everyone walked through it before this library was built. Science labs have been improved through the years. Even the clientele has changed.
When I started, you know, and in this place they started adding more places, like more rooms, adding the gym, they adding 2 more rooms, no 2, 106 and 119 and 525, 524. And
Tengo muchas, pero le voy a decir en el año 1992, 93, 21 mujeres estaban embarazadas, incluyendo
it's a unique campus in that you can stand at one end, and I show parents you can see everything in the school from one end to the other. And I think we are a close group here. We like working with each other.
Well, I like the school. I like this place. You see the hallways is too wide, and I can breathe. And I feel like my house. I feel like my second house. I feel.
Y además, ¿qué cambios ha visto en Grisham durante sus años?
Muchos cambios también que le agregaron a esta escuela antes. La tecnología, ¿verdad? Porque no había televisiones, no había teléfonos en los cuartos, los proyectores, la pantalla de los proyectores tenía que cargar yo y llevarlos a donde las necesitaban. Mucho cambio de.
I've got a great story, and it's in regards to coaching. I mean, just one of many. There's a couple things about Grisham, the school. One, when I had all the kids that were kind of the behavior challenges, the young men, they all wanted to play sports. So I make a deal with them. If they work for 45 minutes, then we'd have like 5 minutes of recreation time. And as long as they didn't go ahead and violate, any of the principles of the classroom, then they'd be able to go ahead and we'd go outside, we'd have reinforcement time. So we'd play football, and in the spring we'd do slow pitch baseball. So I had kids that would sometimes, we'd end up, some of our sporting goods would end up on the roof, kind of over where Mrs. Dixon's room is right now. And I'm like, oh my gosh, another ball up on the roof. And so I asked Mary Ann how you get up there, and it's like Mission Impossible. You've got to have key to this one room, and then there's this ladder you got to climb up. I mean, it's just, and so I've got up on the roof several times, and the view up there, you almost want it to, it's almost it's like, something right out of Swiss Family Robinson.
Well, it was a highlight for me more than anything else. It used to be like for Teacher of the Year when that happened. The only thing they'd do is they'd mention your name when you were standing in the back of a boardroom. That was it. There wasn't anything else. But it was a surprise then. They didn't announce it ahead of time for the kids or the teachers or anybody else. And I remember being there at the Academic Awards, and they announced that I got Teacher of the Year for Grisham. I got Secondary Teacher of the Year for the district, which I don't know if anybody else has done that for our school. And the kids' response, they jumped up, they started screaming and yelling, and they were so enthusiastic. I will never forget that moment as long as I live. That was more important than, any dinner or parking spaces or things they do now. That meant the most to me, that the kids were so excited about it.
I'm an artist in my other world, and so I have a creative outlet is really important for me. And I make things and I sell things sometimes, and that's my other world, my altar life.
What kind of art do you do?
I do fused glass necklaces, and I do paper art, and I watercolor. I used to love to sub in the art room here because I would get to do everything the students were doing. So in my 3 years of subbing, that was good.
Well, now as I look back at it, you always have like, second guess yourselves and woulda, coulda, shoulda. I wish I could have. I probably, if I had to do it all over again, maybe looking to get into some sort of broadcasting, because I'm a big sports fan, and then I like to talk, and then looking into some sort of broadcasting. But I don't sit there and beat myself up over that, because just the fact of you really do get to meet a lot of interesting people when you're a teacher. So, and it's very rewarding in that.
I've done some things. I've done voiceovers for video games, Microsoft games, that kind of thing. I used to do a lot of voiceovers for radio in different cities that I've lived in. A lot of that sort of thing, but I love it all.
If I was passing something on to students, I would magically want them to all be responsible for their own learning. That's pretty much my goal for every student that I have every year. For ownership to come, for me to move it from my plate. I act it out and move it from my plate. from your mom's plate to your plate, so that when I send you to high school, that you are the one in charge of your learning. I think that's an important thing to pass on.
Es agradecerles a todos los maestros y
You know, there's been a consistency in this Anderson Mill neighborhood. So, and Grisham's been, I think, just kind of a neat little thing tucked away in this neighborhood that's been consistent for all those years. So, I mean, it's kind of a nice feeling. You know, kids can come here and, you know, they can feel like it's an opportunity. You know, they feel like they belong, and there's a little bit of ownership to it, and a sense that this is our school. So, and that's kind of nice to be a part of that.
Although I have a poster over there, you know, people may forget what you say or do, but they won't forget how you make them feel. I think that's an important thing. And there's a wonderful musical called Wicked. And some of the lyrics that I love is that the very end of it, who can say if I've been changed for the better, but because I knew you, I have been changed for good. And I think that's important. There's a friend who used to teach at Grisham who came back who said there's a very special feeling here that isn't anywhere else. It's a real family. I chose to bring my daughter to this school. So, you know, thanks to everybody who has been on that journey. I appreciate it.
Here's a Christmas song. I'm dreaming of those grizzly bear announcements, just like the ones from yesterday, where the hallways glisten and the students listen to hear who in sports we play.
Just because this is a living legend talk, I'm not leaving yet.
So that was one of it. So going up there, all the different sporting goods. But then the other one was in coaching. Coaches have to drive the bus. That's part of our responsibility. And I went out to McNeil High School early in the morning to get a bus. And it was in the winter. And McNeil High School, where the bus barn sits right on Austin White Lime, all this wilderness area where there's pasture and stuff. And so you'd have skunks and raccoons, and these raccoons, they're smart critters, they would sometimes get up into the school buses because, you know, the athletes, you know, they would, you know, especially the high school, they stop and would get, you know, fast food after a tournament, and the coaches wouldn't empty it out, so the raccoons were looking for a free meal. So I got in one morning, it was exceptionally cold, and I just turned the key over, and I didn't walk up and down in the bus or do a check. But I noticed a garbage can knocked over, and I thought, okay, well, you know, no big deal. And then I start driving, and I hear like some noise in the back. I'm like, okay, that's maybe just stuff rustling around. So I just blew it off. I pulled the bus out right out here outside the school, and I came inside and, you know, went about my day. And then around 11:30, 12 o'clock, it started to rain. And it was going to start to rain, and I thought, well, I better go out and make sure the windows on my bus are all up so it doesn't get all wet. And I went in there, and I go to do the windows, and I saw something run around. Well, nonetheless, I brought a raccoon. I brought a raccoon, a live raccoon with me from the bus barn. It was on the bus, and I'm like, son of a gun, what do I do? And so I went around, and I went into the office, the PE office, and Coach Schmidt, who's a legend, the guy was here like 35 years, 30 years, and I go, Coach, you're not going to believe this, but I've transported a raccoon from the bus barn. And he said, well, we got to get it out. And he was the outdoor sports guy, so he goes, we got to get some. So he gets a couple golf clubs, and we get a couple of shields. They're great big Tupperware lids, and we walk out there, and we're trying to scare that raccoon, and it wasn't budging. And so then Coach Schmidt, you know, he was probably not as nimble as me, but he took it upon himself to climb over the we finally got the raccoon to run out the front steps. And the interesting thing, if you look across the street, there's an old gentleman over here that's, I think he's retired, and his garage door's always open. And that raccoon ran out of the bus, and the last I saw was beelining towards that guy's garage, so.
I say, Grisham Middle School.
The home of the Grisham Grizzlies. Marching on to victory.
Go blue, go white, Grisham Grizzlies.